Recording live from the E. Haley Memorial Studios, straight out of Elmont, Ontario, it's time for This Death Clock Has 60 Minutes, your one and only weekly Warmahordes news broadcast. It's 8 p.m. Wednesday night, and the death clock starts now. The news is fresh, and the death clock starts now. Go for it. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the death clock. It is again Wednesday night, and this, gentlemen, is episode 24.
Yeah, nice. We got a double dozen going up.
We got a double dozen. Oh, that's actually Death Clock. Now, we've done a lot more podcasting.
And a lot more videos, yeah.
Lots of exciting news coming down the pipeline this week. We have had an incredible week for the podcast. It's been great to hear from the fans. This is the first time we've really got a lot of feedback from the fans. I guess that's I guess once you've been listened to by 1,000 people for 4 weeks straight, they start to tell you what they think about you. Most of the time it's negative, but this time it's been pretty positive.
Yeah.
We also have other news coming in. Wizards Tower, our local game shop, has decided to come on board, and they're going to be part of our entire wacky thing that we got going on. Not sure at the level yet, but we should hear back from them tomorrow, and we'll know a little bit better. So, before we get started tonight, I need to introduce the other people that make this podcast sing. Sitting to my right is no other than Maelstrom. Maelstrom, also known as the weird guy in the corner that doesn't talk much.
Yeah, I'm like in the group now.
Yeah,
we had to pull him out of the corner.
Because, yeah, he just spent his whole night on the chat otherwise, which was good for Brad, but for...
Yeah, well, it's nice to be sitting here with you fine, distinguished gentlemen.
And on my left is no other than my partner in crime, the one and only PG Semi-Automagic. Say hello.
Hello. I'm very confused about being a fine or distinguished gentleman.
Yeah, that's weird.
Well, I use the terms loosely.
Now, down here, if you're watching the video, you'll be wondering who this fourth person is who is joining us this evening, who is now the weird, quiet guy in the corner. That is no other than the one, the only, the beautiful, the magnificent James Craig. Introduce yourself, James.
Howdy, folks.
James, we brought on the show tonight because apparently he's good at painting and stuff. Mm-hmm. He texted us a couple weeks ago. He was like, hey, you guys, love the show. I'm good at painting and stuff.
And that is all the opening that we need to put you on the podcast.
Yeah. That's all.
If you, in fact, by mistake, we may have put some telemarketers on the podcast earlier. So, it's not always working out, but we always have a guest. So
he wants to talk about painting for like 10% of the podcast, and then he wants to talk about your mutual fund needs, I think.
I'm still waiting for my Nigerian
James,
money.
let's give them a bit of your pedigree, because you actually are really good at painting and stuff. You might have the word Grandmaster.
I may indeed. I got the 2014 Privateer Press Grandmaster trophy for Diorama with it was Gorman de Seawolf, the Press Gang exclusive piece in a diorama. It was a fun piece. And I've got a couple of bronze coins from 2014 and 2015 as well.
Was that the Gorman de Seawolf with the on the plinth with the waves coming up and such, or was that
no?
Or was it
that one's Meg's actually?
Okay, that one's Meg's. Yours was the one with the city street in the background, I want to say.
Yeah, he's fighting off a bunch of guys in the Five Fingers, some criminal types.
All right, I knew that. That was
and he's black oiled the Lancer, and he's taking it out on the guys hiding behind the table.
That is awesome. But first, before we get into that, we're of course going to have to cover what is going on with Privateer Press, because there's actually a crap ton of news that came out of SmogCon this weekend.
Yeah.
Kind of unexpected.
Well, see, the thing about the news coming out of SmogCon is it's all rumor mill, and let's see how drunk we can get the Privateer Press guys before they will start telling us things they're really not supposed to.
The question and answer period, which was really just let's get them loaded at the pub.
Yeah.
That's also how we treat our guests on this show, so
yeah,
that's
exactly.
totally legit. Yeah. What do we got going on there, PG Semi-Automagic?
Well, there's all kinds of stuff. What may be the biggest and yet the smallest news is that the playtest is starting on the new Hordes faction right after SmogCon. Now, why I say this is the biggest and the smallest news, we did know that there was a Hordes faction coming. They said that sometime relatively soon. Now, for Privateer Press, that could mean any time in the next 5 years. But, so they have confirmed that it's coming. They've confirmed it's gone into testing. The downside of this is we know that Privateer Press test most models for a minimum of 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So we're not looking at it like
unless
soon.
they mean outside of the company play tests are starting, in which case it's already gone through the bulk and now they're farming it out to their external play testers to try and catch some of the horribleness before it completely goes out, then
everybody starts screaming,
we
"That's
will
broken."
start seeing, we won't actually see anything for a couple of years,
right.
But
But let's say with COC, how far before the actual release did you start getting hints as to what the faction was going to be?
we didn't actually see much about COC before it. There were, of course, there's always a whole bunch of rumors and
Right.
stuff like that, but nobody had nailed down exactly what it was going to be.
So we know it's coming, but we've also known it's been coming for a while, and we still have no confirmation as to what it is. So that is just another, just fuel for a fire.
Yep.
We do have Carver 3, I want to say, or is it Carver 2?
I think it's Carver 2.
Carver 2 on a board chariot, possibly in the future. Is the
Yeah,
next
well,
rumor?
yeah, it's sort of the next version of Carver that
Right.
they've been tossing around. Everybody else are getting chariots, the men off one.
Everybody's getting a large base,
a huge base
Yeah.
caster, yeah. And I do kind of like the idea. That's a very Carver thing to do.
Carver deserves a
Yeah.
chariot. Carver, what's his moniker and all that.
Oh,
stuff.
BSC, AC,
Yeah.
MRP,
He
NLP,
totally needs a chariot.
whatever.
Theme force and leveling adjustments will happen in the future. You and I were talking about this a bit, Maelstrom.
Yeah.
You needed, not needed. What are you
Well,
feeling?
it depends on
You
which
just saw
faction
on
we're
Vale.
talking about. Leave Vale 2 alone. That's all I'm going to say.
He's finally winning. Don't take
Finally
away his
winning.
veil.
Leave her alone.
Yeah, and I think we can all agree. And James, I don't know how invested you are in the world of the PP news, but I think we can all agree that tier lists in the competitive scene they're becoming I wouldn't say problematic. I think they're dealable, but some of them, once they've been cracked, they turn up shit to redunculous level.
Yeah, one of the things that a lot of people talk about with theme forces is the fact that they don't really get as much playtesting as some of the other parts of this game do. And the fact that you need to balance off the restrictions against the free points, and what those free points buy you has changed over the years.
Yeah.
So, say you have a theme force that said can only take exemplars, say. And then that was before the exemplar seneschal came out. So the opportunity cost for only taking exemplars has gone down, right? You're like, well, why wouldn't I take these exemplars? But the benefit that you get for only taking exemplars is still there. So what they need to do is look at the current and probably the future model range and actually readjust what you get high and low on there.
Well, and I think the other thing, the argument on this is that because they're not play tested, the original idea with theme forces was that it got you to do sort of creative, character-driven stuff. It wasn't there to fix a model generally, but it has started to become that to a certain degree. A model that's not getting played gets to be part of a theme force and may get AD, or a caster that's not getting played might get a buff that makes him useful. And that's good for the game overall, but you have to play test it to an equal degree. And some of these theme forces, some of the old ones even, with the new releases of models, they get cranked up to 12.
Well, that's why occasionally you see real weirdnesses, like models. For example, the Fury of Halak. They are very carefully listed in the book as Praetorians and all that stuff, but they are missing the Praetorian keyword. And the reason for that is there are theme forces that can include any Praetorian models.
Yep.
And suddenly this really highly specialized unit that would never have been designed into that theme force would have a keyword that would put them in that theme force.
Now, okay, there's a couple other kind of light rumors, like Lich Lord Morton Emera might have been a typo. Agathea is taller.
Literally, it is a typo.
It's a typo. Agathea is taller than Denegra, smaller than Terminus. That's woo. That's not really here near there.
She will be pretty.
What I do think I want to ask James about is Hydra has taught some hard lessons about the future Colossal releases in manufacturing, and I think that has to do with the plastics over.
Yeah, I believe they're going to the hard plastic on just
So,
about everything.
James, you might be able to comment on this being more on the hobby side of things. What is the sort of difficulty in the process of moving to the hard plastics?
Well, a lot of it ends up coming down to the way molds are cut and manufactured, and especially if they're going the route that it looks like they are, where it's multi-part or multi kits on one base. The engineering that actually goes into that is substantial. It's not just cutting apart one model kit anymore. It's actually designing it as separate pieces from the get-go. It's a little more complex, and then also the process of doing it, really out of house, trusting other people to do all the cutting, all the tooling, bringing it back, and if we watch what's happened with things like Kingdom Death or other Kickstarters, the amount of extra time that can go into retooling these molds to get them right in the first place, because they're a huge investment, but in the end they should really pay off for the company, I think.
Well, because it becomes cheaper to manufacture, they can get it done overseas, etc., and the detail is incredible once they get it right.
Yeah, I am a big fan of the hard plastic kits.
Yeah.
I kind of like metal, like that's sort of where my heart lies, but the hard plastics are so much lighter, and especially for big objects.
I also say, and you guys can comment on this, guys who are more on the graphical side, but I've noticed that 3D things that have been done in a 3D mold, like a computer-generated 3D molds, come out better in the plastics than they do in the metals, generally.
Yeah.
I don't know what the reasoning behind that is. Maybe it's the amount of detail that it can pick up, but the molds...
The newer models coming out now look, fantastic. Like the Proteus and the new Denny and stuff. Just...
Okay, let's quickly move through this, guys. We got the Dracodile again. Apparently, it is on the release schedule. It's done. It just keeps getting brought in and pulled.
Well,
see the previous point about the Hydra.
Yeah. Well, the this is actually confirmation that there actually is a Dracodile. We always knew that the Dracodile existed in an IK sort of way because it was in the Monsternomicons, but I think this is the first time they've actually confirmed there is actually a Dracodile coming.
So the next thing we got...
I want it.
Yeah.
Of course we do. It's a giant crocodile! So the coolest thing, I think the news coming out about Alice and Jake's being moved up to full Warcaster, which for the Signar players is exciting, but why this is important to everybody else is that means that all the rest of the Journeyman casters that came out during the Journeyman, what was that, 2010 Journeyman Everywhere?
Well, it was actually part of the Kickstarter.
Right.
Well, that's where the alternate sculpts came from, and that was the first time we found out about all the Journeyman Warcasters. They were then subsequently in the next book. But there was always this, because of the way Alison Jakes ended up becoming a Warcaster of her own right in the game, like through the story mode, there has always been that, hey, we should probably see all these in-game. Whenever you see a caster outside of the normal game that is new, there's always that suspicion, hey, this is somewhere that we're going to see War Machine, the core game itself, go that direction.
Right. Well, and I guess the cool thing is that we all love the idea of new casters. They've already announced that there's a new caster coming out for every faction. There's already been announced that there's hints at epic casters for every faction, and the fact that our journeymen are also going to be moved up. We know who the new casters are, so the fact that we know that every faction is getting 3 new casters generally are slated, that's pretty exciting news.
Now the thing is,
for me, the exciting part is on the end that the one thing that I really like about Privateer and the Mintio, like this, all the background stuff, is that they're willing and actively pursuing moving the story forward and making that an active part of the game, and being, looking at the journeyman casters, maybe even looking outside the journeyman casters for other characters, see if there's a possibility for other people to move up. There's always suggestions. Everybody says Dirty Meg should be a caster.
Hell yeah.
So, always looking ahead and looking at different angles. I think they do a really good job with that kind of thing.
Well, I think there's something super fun about reading a story about a story about the faction you care about a lot, and they hint at a character and you get excited, like Savio or Costa was a perfect example about getting excited about something in the lore, and then he appears and you get super crazy about it. Yeah. Last thing I want to touch on before we move into actually letting James talk more than forcing him to interject is The plan is in place for finally solving the errata card conflict. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have been playing this game over the last year, you know that your cards mean nothing anymore unless you... what's in place there, PG? We're
currently the only way is War Room.
Yeah.
The cards that are out there are not correct. The books that are out there are not correct. War Room is your source for accurate cards right now. Well, I shouldn't say that. You could also print out the document, and then every time that you looked up a card, you could also flip to the document and see if it had gotten a change.
Right, which is not practical.
It's not practical. But there have been all kinds of different scenarios put forward. Some companies in the past have released a pack of all the cards that have been affected, plus stickers for your book. So anytime there's a rules paragraph that's been changed, they basically come out with a sticker sheet that you can just drop right onto your book. Other companies will put out a revision. So actually, Privateer Press did that. They put out Mark 1, and then they put out the second Mark 1 book with a few updates. And then they put out the remix,
Gotcha.
which added a few more things before the Mark 2.
Okay. So there's a plan in place, so everybody calm down. We'll stop complaining about it, that nothing's being done in Privateer Press sucks because they don't fix the cards. There's something in place.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we don't need to go to any splash screen. What's that?
You're not going to mention the Convergence stuff?
Oh.
We found out that we're actually getting stuff.
Oh, no, I didn't hear about that.
No.
Convergence is getting stuff.
Not just the Colossal, but there is actually a bunch of releases for Convergence coming. The assumption in the Convergence circles is that we'll see the caster from the High Command game showing up.
Nobody plays.
The Constellation, and then we'll probably see both the Colossal and I suspect we will see a new unit as well.
Well, there was also that now apparently all your units are going to be considered living models. Did you, you read?
Don't worry, guys. Nobody plays those things anyway,
Yeah.
right?
So, it doesn't
So
matter
you
if
few cock lovers out there.
Last but not least, before I let go of the news, the Kickstarter campaign for Widowers Wood has been updated with even better Kickstarter stuff. I want to make sure, because Minty's been begging me all week to make sure that we mention the fact that the Kickstarter now has better stuff. So get on the Kickstarter, check it out. If you like PP board games, if you like Privateer Press and the work that they do, and PP board, the last PP board game, get on, check out the Kickstarter, because there's lots of cool.
They've just recently unlocked the Autumn tiles. That just happened,
and tiles are cool because you can use them in your normal game. We use them all the time.
They are great. We've also seen Lanissa Raphael. We've seen who else was it?
The alternate sculpt of Pendrake.
The ultimate sculpt of Pendrake. The alternate sculpt of Lanissa Raphael. The next big one they're going to hit is a 225k, which is a new sculpt for the Ironback Spitter.
Sounds
for
good.
All the hundreds of people who are using that model.
All right, so we're only 4 minutes over our talk about the news, but let's drop the news. Let's let James take over here a little bit. We brought James on the show this week because what we really want to talk about is something I think that we forget about when we get... War Machine players in particular sometimes forget about the hobby. Sometimes. We might be guilty as a miniature war gamers of being the one group that drops the hobby the quickest. And it's just like, I just bought a bunch of models, I have the cards, and I play them gray with some primer on them, if you're lucky. But there is a whole other side to this. And I mean, some of the best paints on the market have been put out by Privateer Press. Some of the best models on the market have been put out by Privateer Press. And some of the best painting competitions are put forward by Privateer Press. So it's important every once in a while to go, hey guys, let's not just talk about whatever theme force is the, Black Forest cake of the week. Let's talk about how to paint better, how to be better hobbyists, and how to get involved in the hobby community that is such a giant part of this game that we play. James, you've won several awards painting over the last few years. You're an art teacher on top of all of that, so you spend your day around color art painting.
That's right.
Let's talk a bit about getting involved in painting competitions, and let's start a bit about your history and how you got involved in painting competitions and what brought you in.
I was working on models for another game, Grandma Wendy's favorite game, and there was an article in White Dwarf about an artist in the States named Joe Arteza, and he sculpted the craziest, like, just bizarre things. Still does, actually, but these models, I had never seen anything like them before, and I thought these were really cool. And then it turned out he was an art teacher, and I was like, well, I've got an art degree. Why am I not using the skills that I'm learning right now on my models, as opposed to just slapping paint on them, throwing them on the table? In the same issue, there was an advertisement for the first Golden Demon and Games Day in Canada, and so in 2001, I went to Games Day Toronto, and I won my first Golden Demon, and got involved in the hobby community in Ontario, and ended up now I've been to competitions all over the place. So I got really hooked that first time out. So
okay, so let's start with the basics. You're locally you're known as a good painter. You show up to competitions and people pick up your models off the table and go, "Oh my god, that's beautiful, dude." How do I, as a person that's okay in my local community, start to develop the skills to become a competition level painter? What's your advice for that first step?
The most important thing to do is to get in contact, get involved in community. Working, in a basement, in a closet, on your own is only going to get you so far. You really need to be looking, and there's, it's so different now than when I started painting. The whole internet, the communities that are out there, the support that's out there, it's massive. The learning curve of new painters today is so much different, and it's awesome. So there's always people, pushing the boundaries of new things, but there's so many people out there who will help you just work on those foundations. There's all kinds of YouTube videos, guys like Les Bursley there, Painting Buddha, Massive Voodoo. They're amazing painters, but they also share. Mm-hmm. They share all the time, and that's where it's at. The War Machine and Hordes painting group on Facebook is great. Shoshi helps run that, and she's a great up and coming painter who's really, very much putting her stuff out there all the time and happy to bounce ideas with anyone. That's really important to have a supportive community more than anything else.
I think I also want to add, I think I made the biggest leap when I decided to take a course from an expert level painter. And that's something that some people don't think is important. Some people are like, whatever, I'm not going to pay $100, $200, whatever, to go sit in a room for 2 days and take a course from somebody. And I remember actually kind of not getting ribbed about it, but it was just sort of like, dude, seriously, you could learn all this online. But there is nothing in the world like human-to-human interaction, particularly when it comes to miniature painting, because so much doesn't translate from a little, from a web camera.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. First step, start getting some ideas as to, what are the things you should be doing. Give them a try, start working on your skills, and then go and work on those skills one-on-one or in a small group with somebody who is, ready to teach and ready to give you some serious critique. I always sound like some kind of goober name dropper when I'm talking about the people I go take lessons from, but I'm taking lessons in a couple of weeks. I'm going to go see, there's a company called Fernando Ruiz Miniatures, FER Miniatures, and we've flown Fernando in from Spain in a week, and we're going to spend a weekend painting with him this year, and it was amazing last year. I learned so much, so I'm really excited to do that. But back in the early 2000s, I used to fly down to Chicago every year for Chicago Games Day, and I'd stay with Jen Haley and Joe and a bunch of other people, and I'd just paint with them for a week at a time, and I learned so much there. It was all the difference in the world. I didn't always get everything while I was at those lessons. Anything I learned from Jen, hi Jen if you're listening, 3 years later, I would probably go, oh, that was what that was. And, it really honestly took that long, but being able to see it firsthand, to try it, to get those first steps being pushed in the right direction, night and day, made enormous difference.
And I think you hit the nail on the head also with critique. Mm-hmm. Having people rip you apart, it's the hardest thing about this hobby, especially when you get to a competitive level. And I'm nowhere near at the level that you're at, but at the same token, I do compete in painting competitions. So even having local guys like my buddy Ben or the guys that
Jean.
did Jean at Blood and Iron this year, having them rip apart what you're doing is a really hard pill to swallow. But when you get home and look at what you did, you realize very quickly what they were trying to point out to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a small circle of friends that I show all my stuff to, and then a few other people as well. But a good example is the bust I did at Gen Con this past summer. I got a silver with it at the Gen Con show, and while I was painting it, I had a couple of the other painters, David and a couple others, really kind of being very critical, and I knew what was wrong with it going in. And I edited those things when I got home, and I took it to another competition and got gold this fall. So, it really is important to have, that kind of critique, and to have people that aren't just like, oh my God, it's so awesome. Mm-hmm. You need, oh my God, it's awesome, but here's some things that you could push further or might want to consider working more on. It's always up to the artist in the end. They need to have that choice. Sometimes my decision is different from the people that critique me, but at least I know that how other people perceive it when they say it, makes a huge difference.
So I've painted a miniature. I think it's pretty good. The people locally might think it's okay. What do I need to do? How do I know if I'm ready for my first competition?
If you feel good about it, you're ready for your first competition. If you the bottom line is everybody should be putting their stuff in. You can't get feedback. You can't, get real understanding of what you've done, what you've still got to do, unless you see it in the case next to other people's pieces. The reality is I can put all the stuff on my shelf all day long, and I can be like, oh, my stuff's awesome. But until I take it and put it out there and have people look at it super carefully and, turn it upside down and look at the bottom of it and see, are the details really all on point? Is the contrast really there? I can monkey photos all day long, but until I see it in real life, there's a huge difference. Photography, there's some models that photograph better than they look in real life, and there are some models that will look infinitely better in real life than they ever will on a photograph. And that's sometimes the use of colors, it's the sensor in the camera, it's the lighting on the day. You really have to get your stuff out there. You have to share it with people in person and then get your feedback.
So if you're painting a model, what's the difference for you between a model that you're going to drop on the table and a competition level model?
Well, I drop most of my competition models on the table anyway, but the difference is in how far I'm willing to check the small things. How important is it that blend is perfect from here to there, as opposed to looks perfect from 4 inches away or 6 inches away? Is it going to look perfect? And I do use my camera to help me quite a bit. I take a photo and I blow it up huger than it has any right to be, and if it looks good 10 times its regular size, then it's probably pretty good. But if I blow it up to 2 or 3 times its original size and I can see a flaw in the paint, that flaw's there, it's real. So for me it really comes down to working those smallest details more than anything, and also really thinking about composition. A game model that I put on the table, I might pay attention to how it relates to the base, and I want it to look really cool. But I'm not necessarily as focused on getting the pose just perfectly, on getting the relationship between the elements of the base and all the color elements in the piece, the visual movement, how my eyes travel around the model. That really matters in competition. Do I have strong focal points? Do I have a strong visual movement? Do I have good balance? These things matter more in competition. On the table, it just has to look cool.
Great. So, James, I've only been playing War Machine for about a year. I'm not a big paint guy. I see beautiful models on the table. I want beautiful models myself. Can anybody achieve the kind of level that you see in competitions, or do you need the background in art? Is it something anybody can do?
It really is. I mean, I'm lucky that I felt that I had a jump start in it, but I've seen painters who've been painting for a year who are, computer engineers or my one friend's a taxi cab driver and he paints like a beast, and he came out of nowhere. He's got no specific background. He just liked what he saw on the internet, gave it a try, asked some people for advice, and really practiced his craft. That's the bottom line. You can't get good without putting in brush time. You can find all kinds of shortcuts. I've painted armies that look good on the table in like 3 days. I did a Crix 25-point force in 2 lunch hours, and there's shortcuts and there's tricks that can be found, but you only can break the rules once you have a fair understanding of what they're supposed to be. You want to cheat and get a highlight on there faster and jump a couple of steps with your airbrush. Well, you have to know how to use an airbrush. You have to know where those highlights are going to go. You have to know which colors will give you the effects. So it does take some practice, and it takes some learning, but anyone can do it.
So this isn't a raw talent thing. This is 10,000 hours you got to put in.
I don't know if it's even 10,000 hours now. With the internet, maybe 100 hours, and you can get a good start.
Well, I wanted to kind of make this point at one point tonight, because this comes up a lot. The concept of, well, that guy's just a talented painter, or well, it's easy for you because you're an art teacher. And you made the point of the taxi cab driver that just shows up and is great. Those are anomalies. The reality is the people that are really good, and this goes for music, as you know, anything else that creative talent is often about hours spent in chair and dedication to whatever your craft is. And so to all those people that are like, well, I'm just not a good painter or whatever, it's like, dude, seriously?
Doesn't matter.
With the access you have to everybody else's brain knowledge now,
Yeah.
learning all the stuff that used to take us take a course in France about color theory, you don't have to do that anymore. You can go take that color theory course online, and then I think I just want to reiterate, it's about brush time. Sit in a chair and paint before you tell me you can't paint. Sit in a chair and paint, I guess.
Listen, I teach kids that come into my class that say, I can't even draw a stick man. How am I going to do art? And at the end of the year, they've made things that just amaze them. And end of the year, it's the end of a semester. It's only a few months. When you can take a kid that's got no background, nothing in art, and have them walk out with stuff that they're proud of, that they're hanging on their wall, that they're giving as gifts, they want to come back again. That says that they have been able to learn. It wasn't an innate talent. It wasn't something they came in with. It's not come to my class and show off what you can already do. Yeah. It's a learning place. Yeah. So really, I genuinely believe that anyone can learn this stuff.
So
can anyone learn to be Chris Borer or Jen Haley? No. Not everyone can learn to be Bohan. I can't. But that doesn't mean you can't learn to be awesome.
Sounds great. Are there any sort of trends in miniature painting right now that you really like or dislike?
So back around 2003, non-metallic metals and confrontation, the French style was the big thing. And for a number of years, the whole non-metallics thing it was still there, but it became less of the focus. For a couple of years, it was the big thing, and then it wasn't the big thing anymore. Lots of people were doing it. Recently, I've seen more and more stuff where people are, again, kind of pushing the boundaries with non-metallic metals. And, really, a lot of the trends come from top painters that people admire. Ben Comets is doing crazy things in non-metallics these days. And there's the guys, Ben's part of it, but the Painting Buddha has done all those lessons in how to do armors on the new Warhammer thingamadoodles and Space Marines and stuff. So there's been a lot of really interesting non-metallic work recently. So I think that's a big trend right now. It's not my favorite trend right now, but that's all right. I'm more interested. I've been looking more and more at historical miniature styles and trying to learn more weathering and chipping and that kind of thing. I've had a lot of fun with that. And I think like Secret Weapon is just this week on Facebook been talking about, they've got a new line of paints coming out that are all about weathering. And, he does such good weathering effects that I think that's going to be really, really cool. And so, that's another trend. Everything's either really shiny and metallic or everything's really dirty. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay with that. The one thing I'm really quite happy with is airbrushing has become a really it's no longer kind of like a weird, scary taboo kind of thing. For a number of years, if you pulled out your airbrush, it was cheating somehow. The airbrush is the airbrush is like any other tool. You have to learn how to use it. It can be really. I'll never paint an army without one again, but that doesn't mean that the airbrush makes the army good. It just really helps cut down a lot of the work on some things and lets me paint more models. So, and I don't paint very many to begin with. So,
well, I think I want to sort of double down on that. One of the things I love about the current trend in miniature painting is that things are becoming less and less taboo. Mm-hmm. It's not about it. It used to, I don't know, about 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when people were handing in their Warhammer miniatures at the local competition, there was the airbrush guy, there was the guy who used inks, there was the guy who didn't use inks, there was the non-metallic metal guy, and the non-metallic metal guy was the guy that was like, well, or whatever. There was always, everybody was divided in different camps. And what I found changed, I don't know, maybe it's just in the last couple of years, is people have started embracing everything. That it's not about using one particular tool, it's about using all the tools to the best of your abilities. Mm-hmm. And no matter what you say about, well, I don't use inks, I only use washes or whatever, it's like, in the end, there are benefits to using Agrex Earthshade at a certain period of time to get by a certain point in a model. It's about combining all those skills, not about adhering to one as being the only right way to do something. That's true in all art to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. You don't learn how to play, one type of progressive solo on a banjo and never, ever, ever learn how to play anything else and play that solo every time. You learn how to combine a bunch of different skills together to become a better artist. Mm-hmm. And I love this period of time in miniatures. I hope that we don't go back to being exclusive, if that makes sense.
Let's not revert.
Yeah.
Let's all just be like, hey, cool, you used a wash super effectively.
Yeah.
So we've all been throwing around the term non-metallic metal. Can you give us a quick little, 30-second explanation of what non-metallic metal is for those people who may not have come across it before?
Yeah, the traditional way of painting metal is you get a shiny metallic paint and you put it on the thing and it looks kind of like metal. Mm-hmm. Non-metallic metal is an illustrator's technique. If you draw a sword on the cover of a book, you're not using metallic inks. It's not going to print in metallics. Use shades of grays and whites and high contrast to make it look shiny. So non-metallic metals is painting metallic-looking surfaces using flat colors.
Now, does non-metallic metals only look right from one direction? Because when you're drawing, say, the front of a cover of a book or something, you, for want of a better word, know where the camera is. So you get to put the highlights where they're supposed to be. Is that a problem when you're painting non-metallics?
No more so than painting highlights on a model in general.
Okay.
The model is already being lit. You've already decided with the tonality of your paint where the light source looks like it's coming from, generally above, from one side or another. And the non-metallics, as long as they match up with what you're doing on the rest of your figure, should be just fine.
Amazing. Great. So if you're trying to, say, set yourself apart from everybody else at your next competition, how do you develop a style that is your own, something that people will say, oh, this is an amazing model, oh, and it's one of James's models,
Yeah, I think that comes from a few different things. One is painters in general will find colors that they like to work with, and that's their comfort zone. So most of their models are going to end up falling somewhat into that category. I'll go back to Ben Comets again. The dark sea blue is in everything. I swear he puts it on his toast in the morning. It's everywhere. Jen Haley's all purples. Mm-hmm. Just look at her models. Not every model she does, but every model she does for herself.
Sanguine base.
Yeah. Matthew Fontaine, not so much anymore, but for many years, sanguine base was like everywhere.
I love sanguine base.
And for me, I use like greens and grays, like they're going out of style. So it's all there. Aside from that, I think a lot of it comes in the way that you present your model, the type of basing that you do, the type of lighting that you do. And, if we're talking competition, for me anyway, a lot of it comes down to the conversions and the editing of the model that I do. I very rarely do a piece for competition that is, straight out of the box or the blister. I usually want to add something to it to give it a little bit of additional attention when sitting next to a model that's basically the same model in a competition. When I won my first award, I went and asked the judge. It was Andy Chambers. He said, I said, why did my one win? And he said, well, these are the other two, right? And yeah. He's like, this one is painted better than yours, but they're stock models. They're straight out of the blister. They're not dynamic. They're not interesting. The basing is plain, but technically they are better painted than yours. And this unit over here, these things are much better converted than yours. They're crazy. They're really interesting pieces. Yours has both of those things happening. So congratulations today. And that was my first big lesson in competition was, you got to make your models stand out. They've got to be painted well. But, there are some competitions and some days where you've got 3 or 4 entries that are all amazing. How do you differentiate one from the other? How do you choose this one over that one? And you've got to look for ways to make your models the best models they can be.
So this is probably a good point, James, to segue into who are the guys and girls out there right now that you look up to? Like, who are your idols out there? Who are the best modern mini painters out there to see those gorgeous, beautiful models?
Sure. I've said his name too many times already tonight. Ben Kometz. I look at his stuff and he paints so much, so fast. And it's weird because he's right at a point, even just in the last couple weeks, where he's been doing different things. He's been taking some risks with his non-metallic metals. And he did this incredible bust of a knight where he was just using the paint that was left over on his palette, and it turned into something incredible. I think he's really evolving even further as a painter, which is terrifying because he's so good.
Was that the one that had the reflections of the forest in the knights?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that thing was insane.
Yeah, and it was painted so fast, and it was so good. Bohun is a European painter and just insane. The trompe l'oeil, the trick the eye stuff is I don't understand it. I read his step-by-steps. I could sit down and do it step-by-step, and it would still not be anything like that. It's really, really interesting. I think that Chris Surrey is a really great up-and-coming painter. He won a bunch of awards the last year at Gen Con, and his work is getting better and better, and he's really prominent in a lot of the Facebook forums and stuff right now. I really like his stuff, and I continue to watch his work and talk back and forth with him. In Canada, I think Mathieu Fontaine is still one of our best painters. He is constantly, he's doing a lot of commission work and not necessarily as much creative work where he's really stretching himself these days, but man, his work is so good. I really, really enjoy it. And those are and massive voodoo. Mm-hmm. Those guys always inspire. I don't like everything that they do, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I find it all really interesting. They're always pushing, they're always trying different things, and they're always sharing. And, I look at my own models. Not every model I do that I particularly like either, Sometimes but it helps me push at something new. And these guys are pushing like all day, every day, doing some amazing things for this community.
All right, so let's we'll start to transition into our painting horror stories. But what I want to start with, before we get started, and we can pass this around. We're going to start to go to a sort of our open table format here. Let's discuss a bit advice. Stuff I wish somebody had told me before I slapped the first bunch of paint on a miniature. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go...
I got the first one.
All right, Go for it.
Wash your goddamn model.
Yeah. That's a good
I wish
one.
somebody had actually told me that when I started. Because I put together my very first model. I got a Signar battle box. And I opened it up and I put it all together. And I painted it and it all flaked off. and then I sat down and I scrubbed the models and knocked all that paint off, and then I repainted, resprayed it, painted it up, and as far as I know, those models still have that paint on.
Well, yeah, I think I've got one of them, and it's got about a quarter-inch of shellac.
Well,
on
now
it,
you know
so.
why.
But let's tell people quickly how to when we talk about washing a model, because we've talked about this before. What do you do?
So quick primer to washing your models. You are going to need a bowl of warm soapy water, a toothbrush, a bowl of clear water for rinsing, some paper towel to put the model on, and a model that you have already cleaned all the mold lines off of. So
Before you assemble
this
it.
is before assembly. So you take everything out of the package, clear all the mold lines off that you can see right now, because as soon as you prime it, you'll see all the rest of them. So you take all the mold lines off, stick it into the warm soapy water, and go at it with the toothbrush. Give every inch of that thing a good scrubbing, because what that will do, there's this basically plasticky goo that they put in the molds so that the metal does not stick to the molds that it's made in. Once you have scrubbed all that off, throw it in the water, rinse it off. So you will actually be able to feel the difference on your model. It will feel clean.
You can, yeah.
And then I just stick it on a piece of paper towel to dry while I do the next one. And by the time I've gotten through an entire unit, the first guy is ready to give a little bit of a dry off and then start assembly.
All right, James, what's your I wish somebody had told me?
So it's not a horror story kind of one, but the thing that I wish somebody had told me early on, I just went and grabbed a brush to illustrate this. When you take your brush and you dip it in your paint, okay, pull back and twist your brush. When you do that, the paint collects at the tip the way it should, and it also helps sharpen the tip of your brush over and over again. Your brushes will last so much longer, and you'll get more control over your paint, big time. One of the guys that used to work for the heavy metal team came back to Toronto and worked at one of the stores there, and he taught me that, and it's the best thing I ever learned in painting.
I am stealing that. I realize I kind of do it naturally because I basically sharpen while I'm putting it in the paint, but I never really thought about what I was doing. Maelstrom, what's your I wish somebody had told me?
You actually are the one who taught me how to do all this stuff, so
You wish I had told you?
Anything.
Well, no, you told me to get started. You told me all the stuff I basically needed to know right off the bat to get a good basic going on what I was doing.
Right, you had two guys who had fucked up a lot of shit.
Yeah, I mean,
we screw up a lot.
There was stuff I learned later on for sure, but I actually had a pretty decent start at what to do. I do have, a bit of a horror story here and there.
Give us the horror story.
Well, I can remember the first time I started painting, I believe it was my Angelius, and I thought I was using an ink to wash in the crevices and get it, so it looked like it was cool, and there was dark spots in there, and there was all these water kind of rings and stains all around the thing, and I freaked out thinking I just spent 4 or 5 hours basing this model with the blue and the brown. Now I have to completely scrape all this paint off, soak it in, green or whatever for a couple days. And I took it to you, and you were like, no, you just paint over that a little bit.
So, a little wash.
Yeah, just get it. It's not ruined. You can always just paint over a little bit. Make sure your paints are thin so you can make those adjustments.
Well, I think that would be my... I wish somebody had told me, and this actually... I don't even think you really mentioned it until after I painted my first model and I showed it to you and you were like, dude. And then you sent me that video link of thin your paints. Because it was the first thing, it was like I hadn't painted anything. The last time I had painted something was before any of the special miniatures paints truly exist. I mean, Reaper paints existed to a certain degree, but I painted my first miniature models back in the 80s with Tester's paint. I mean, they were shiny, glossy.
Oh, God.
And I used Tester's paints and toothpicks because I could buy more paint that way and more models that way instead of buying brushes.
Toothpicks, and we created the first washes when somebody was like, dude, if you take some black paint and add some water, and then you could wash it, and all of a sudden it was like mind-blowing. Yeah. And I mean, if you went to competitions at the time, you were pretty good. It was a different time. But the thing was is that really the acrylics, the way that they exist now, didn't exist. And you'd think when you first buy those acrylic bottles, when you buy those, like, wow, this is fancy paint. This is $6 a bottle for this miniature paint.
Yeah.
You should just be able to dip your brush in the bottle. Well, the reality is that they have to make it a certain consistency so that it can do multiple things. One of those things is watering it all the way down to a wash. One of those things is to be able to dry brush it. And that...
And since it's really hard to thicken paint at home.
Exactly. You can't thicken a paint. They have to make it relatively thick. So I wish somebody had said the day I bought the paint, by the way...
Put a little water in there.
Just make sure that you've got it, you don't need to, it doesn't need to be a brush full of water. It just needs to be like, keep your brush moist would be the other one. All right, so painting horror stories. We've done wish somebody had told me. James, you told me you have a great painting horror story. Hit me with that one.
I've got two good ones. One time, I was building a bunch of models for a friend of mine, and we were in a fairly small room and using a lot of super glue. And I sneezed, and the lining of the inside of my sinuses came out through my nose in a big, bloody, gluey...
Oh, my God.
That one was fantastic.
Oh,
Dude!
to this day, you can't smell anything.
It smelled like it was burnt for, like, days. It was
Oh,
fantastic.
my God.
So don't super glue in an enclosed room for long.
When I thought, like, painting horror stories, I was not picturing that.
Well, the lighter one was one time when I was at university, I was assembling corn berserkers. I don't know why I didn't ever use them, but I scraped a mold line off and I stuck it on the model, and then I realized I'd missed a mold line, so I pulled the piece back off, held it in my mouth, super glued my mouth shut. It was that was awesome. I had to literally rip my mouth.
You're getting 2 maelstroms for that.
Yeah. Hey.
Live and learn.
All right, G. Painting horror story.
Oh, painting horror stories. Well, other than having to look at my own painting. That's generally a horror story.
And he's a really good painter, and the worst
Yeah.
part is that he actually comes up with really cool design schemes
Yeah.
that piss us all
I
off.
spend a lot of time coming up with designs that mean I don't have to be a good painter.
That is true.
Actually,
that's
that's
it is
how
your
I
special.
do it.
It is your special.
That is my special power.
Superpower.
Horror story. There was the load of secondhand minis that I got that were painted with house paint. That was a long time.
They were metal, though, right?
Well, as it turns out, about 10% of them were plastic. And I only found that out because when they came out of the sludge, they just kept going right through the sieve. They looked fine until you tried to take them out of the stuff.
Oh, my God.
But yeah, that was a good... I would have to say it was probably a good week of soaking before the top layer started to come off.
Top layer.
and then it was a month before those were usable models.
Right.
Not like
God.
painted or anything. Just like I could put them back together.
All right, Maelstrom. Horror story.
I think I already talked about mine.
You've only got the one where you.
I've
were,
only
like,
got the
freaking
one.
out
I haven't
about
been
the
painting
wash.
that long.
That's funny that
I
that's
did
your horror
spill
story, 'cause
Null
it was-
oil all over my floor.
We've all had the Null oil spill.
Compared to James's, though, I mean, I've never sneezed over my
I
sinus
have.
cavity.
I have the. Well, I did spill Null oil all over myself, but
No,
I
that
think
was Agrex. That's
It was
Agrex
Agrex,
I think
yeah.
we've all done that.
Were
Though.
they
Well,
brown
yeah.
pants?
The worst part about spilling the Null oil or Agrex or shade is not the spilling it.
It's
and
having to
thinning
go
out.
get another thing.
It's paying another $7 or $12, whatever, $55 for the
Whatever Grandma Wendy
The-
wants to charge us, yeah.
the quarter ounce of paint. No, my horror story was I spent a good. This is I think the long. So I had the competitive Getorix that I
Yes.
wanted to make. So I spent. It was going to be my first real competition.
yeah.
So I spent more than 2 days assembling it and getting it the way I wanted it on this base and building it it was my first real cork base on top of all of it, which sounds stupid to everybody who builds cork bases all the time. But for me, up to that point, it was the most expansive basing I had ever done. I pinned every single iota of it. If you've ever tried to assemble Getorix, it's got this weird cocked hand, so you have to do a bunch of filling. I was excited about this. And I went and I primed a bunch of models. And then I picked up the Getorix. I'm like, screw it. I'm going to prime this now. It was about 10 minutes later. And I primed it, using spray on primer, as I generally do, as I've been taught to do, from a distance, and it came out like flock.
Yes.
The cottage cheese look.
In my infinite
Yeah.
wisdom, I thought, oh, well, maybe I just need to spray it some more. Because maybe it's just, maybe it's not dry yet. So, I mean, if you've ever done the Getarix Plus kit assembly, it was like $60 worth of model
Yeah.
that now had a 1/4 inch of white flock on it. That then had to spend literally, I think it was 4 weeks in simple green, and I
Yeah.
got every single day I would go at it with a toothbrush
Yeah.
to try to get it. The benefit of all of this was, by the time I was done scrubbing it to the inch of its life with the toothbrush, it had 0 mold lines left.
The benefit is that none of us had to deal with a Getarix for
Oh,
4
yeah.
weeks.
that
That's
is
great.
true. That is true. Now Getarix is the bane of your
We
existence.
got some good horror stories coming in on the stream. There
Yeah,
too.
guys, if you can check out the video, there's some great horror stories coming in.
Green
Like
ink,
it.
beige
Over that.
carpet.
That way. That way.
One of my friends dropped my Golden Demon entry the night before competition. 6 pieces.
Oh,
Oh,
God.
goodness.
At 5:30 in the morning, I finished putting it back together.
Oh,
So
man.
in a case like that, do you just glue it back together and then
Yeah,
do you have
I
to
just sat
repaint
down
it
in the
all?
hotel room, got out my lamp, fixed it. I won a gold, so I guess it was okay.
See, you don't even have to cry, you jerk. I fixed it, patched a little bit, won a gold, laughed at everybody.
Yeah, it was like 8 hours of patching.
Wait, hold on. Was it Chris Aubin that dropped your model just before?
I cannot say.
Well, if you check that,
He may have admitted to it just recently. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna have to put all this aside because it is time for the lightning round.
lightning round.
Before
so
we get
fun.
into the lightning round, this is James's first lightning round. So everybody's
We gotta go
points
over
are
the
set at
rules?
0. You don't have to. You guys are not competing.
I'm
James,
refilling my glass.
James, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the 10 toughest questions that I possibly can come up with. Well, 9 that I can come up with, and 1 that our friend Minty has come up with, and he comes up with ridiculous questions. And this week is no exception. I will tell you that. To answer the question, I will only allow the person that makes the buzzer sound. If you get it wrong, I give 1 chance for somebody else to buzz in.
Just
there-
one?
Just 1.
Oh.
Unless
It's not like Jeopardy
unless
where,
it's a
you know-
really cool question and
All right,
I want
all right,
you all
all
to
right.
answer it.
So basically, that's the part where I show that I'm not nearly as good at the game as I am.
Well, that is okay because a lot
He's
of
going to
them.
ask you, what color?
What color?
was-
What
Would
color
use to
can I
highlight
use?
Sanguine base.
If you are painted, no, yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have a bunch of questions from Painters of the World questions. They are still lore, privateer, pressy type of questions for this evening. I tried to come up. Minty did come up with something that is a little more painter oriented. So somehow you guys have to not look at the cards. You guys have to look at the camera.
I can't promise
Now I'm in
anything.
the center. Okay, so I'm listening for the buzzer, ladies and gentlemen. It's the lightning round. The lightning round. We can't get the thing to work.
I have
tonight,
to
so-
go over there and press the button.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, question number 1. What race is Mullikarn?
He's a Cyclops?
He is a Cyclops. Very good. 1 point
It's better than the answer
to
I was going to
PG
give.
Semi-Auto Magic.
Scorn!
What is the Afflictor's weapon's name? The Afflictor. Legion Afflictor. Yep.
Not proboscis. What's the
Oh.
name of that thing?
Oh my god, you might actually know this.
God damn.
What is it?
It's the one that they ovipositor?
It is an oval. Oh my god! I can't believe you got
Christ.
that. That was incredible. This is you showing your chops finally. All right. What is the range on a Splatterbore's alchemical mortar? James?
14.
Close. It's 12. But I'll give it to you because you haven't got to answer a question yet. Question number 4.
It's rigged.
Ready for this
Yeah,
one, boys?
yeah.
Everybody get ready on their buzzers because this one's for you guys.
All right.
What does eyeless sight ignore?
Concealment.
That technically true. What's the rest of them?
What's the rest of the things it ignores?
Oh, stealth. Mm-hmm. Cover bonus. No, Shit.
You're really bad at this game.
You're
Yeah,
really
I'm
bad at this.
It's cloud effects,
Cloud effects, that's it.
forest when determining line of sight, concealment, and stealth. These are things you should know.
Line of sight, yeah.
I think we're taking away your Legion.
You're not touching my Legion. Get your fucking hands off my Legion.
One less. Perfect.
That's not what you said last night. How many damage boxes on the Ghidoran Berserker?
All of them are damage boxes.
All of them.
On the card, how many boxes does he have?
Well, they're all boxes. Just some of them
Oh,
aren't
God.
filled in.
So you just refuse to answer? Is that the you don't get any points for that?
If it was hordes, they'd be circles.
Okay. James,
25.
it's
25.
not 25. It's 31. You jerks.
I like turtles. I like
It was even
turtles.
kind of a trick question because we talked about 36 on every other, but the
No,
Berserker is
36 is the full block.
What's
I
that
know.
mean,
All right.
Aubin?
right.
What does that mean?
So, question number 6. What are Fiora's 2 names? What 2 names does she go by on her cards?
Oh, on her cards.
Yes.
I just...
No, not on
Not
Saturday
flaming
night.
bitch and bitch face. What are Fiora's on her cards? She has 2 on her epic version and her P version.
what are her
what are her
monikers
2
on the
full
two?
monikers? Yes.
One is...
I didn't hear any buzzing.
I didn't buzz. That's why.
You're just gonna wait for Aubin to answer.
Yeah, come on,
One is
Aubin.
Protector of the Flame.
Oh,
That's 1
and
point.
The other is...
is it Protector or Protectorate?
No,
Protector
Protector of the Flame.
It's number 1, and number 2 is
Keeper of the
Burn, baby,
It
burn.
Keeper
is-
of the Flame?
Priestess of the Flame.
Priestess of the
Question
Flame.
number- was
I
number
knew that,
2.
yeah.
But I'm going to give you 1 point for that. So far, you're all losing to James.
Prettiest of the flame.
Yeah, definitely. She's
Question number-
fabulous!
Question number 7. What is the Dwarven Mercenary Pact called? What name does the Dwarven Mercenary Pact go by? Go!
Seer Forge.
It is the Seer
Nice.
Forge.
Nice.
Very good. Now you're definitely losing to James. You guys suck at this game. Question number 8.
Actually, play those guys.
Question number 8. What is the bonus to arm for having 2 shields?
2 shields or 2 bucklers?
2 shields.
+4.
It is +4 for
Who
having
has
2
2
shields.
shields?
Doesn't matter. It's in the rules that if you have 2 shields, they stack.
Okay.
I don't know who has them. I bet you Minty.
Kato or Clamjack does, but they don't count as
Shield.
shields.
Yeah.
So.
2 bucklers on a couple of things, but...
All right. Question number 9. What is the defense of a stationary model versus melee?
So a stationary model?
Stationary model versus melee. What's the defense?
Meh.
I'll give it to PG.
Okay, the melee?
Yeah.
It's an automatic hit.
It's an automatic hit.
That's-
Very good.
it
That was the.
technically still has a defense.
It
but-
technically does, but it's an auto hit, so it has no defense. So, but you got the. It was a trick question. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the Minty Fresh question of the night that is painting related. Here we go. Because Minty does his homework, not me. On a Ghidoran model, what does each pair of slashes indicate? If a Ghidoran model has slashes on its arm or somewhere in its insignia, what does that indicate?
I'm going to say years of service?
Specifically,
5?
it is 5 years of service.
Wow.
Very good.
That's
You got
way better than
that
the
is your
answer I was
first
gonna
Minty
give.
Fresh question of the week that you've ever gotten right.
that was mostly a guess.
That
I think
was-
that's the first Minty
that
Fresh
was-
question anybody's
I
getting.
think that's the first Minty Fresh.
It may be.
Yeah, and if you want to know more about where that came from, you
Talk to
ask
Minty.
Minty because
Yeah.
he had there's a whole history behind that. It was quite fascinating. I would regale you with it, but I don't have it on my computer and I can't remember it because I've been drinking vodka all night. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have access to the outro. We might throw this on afterwards, but I want to thank James for joining us tonight. It was fantastic having you here.
Thank you, James.
Thanks for having me,
I hope
guys.
everybody learned something. One of the cool things is James does spend some time on the Moose Machine page. So if you have models and you'd like some feedback from James, I'm sure I'm going to, like I make everybody do crap for us, I'm going to make him do that crap for us. If you have models and you'd like James to give you some feedback.
Also, everybody that you name dropped tonight, we need links
Yeah.
and we need pictures.
He's
And,
only making you do that because that's his job.
yeah.
No, but if you have some models you'd love to get some feedback from James, put them on the Moose Machine page. I'll get him to we won't do it publicly. We'll get him to send you messages privately if you want some feedback. If you want to go do competitions, guys, at most of your major cons now there is competition to go to painting wise. That is a general standard thing. It is coming back. And the best way to become a competitive painter, in my mind, is to go join your local competition. And even if you're not a competitive painter, even if you don't think you're ready, just get your models out there, get people to see them. Because it sucks to go to a really big painting competition and there be 4 models.
Yeah, get out and paint. There are places, I know FDB has painting nights. I know Fandom 2 has painting nights. Get out there, take a look. There are people in your area painting. They're probably painting to a standard you would aspire to. So get out there and paint some models.
And James, if we want to paint with you, or if we want to play a game with you, where do you hang
live?
out?
All right, so I'm
Where's
in,
your
I'm in
exact
Belleville,
location?
Ontario, right between Kingston and Toronto. And I also I have a painting blog, www.lostinthewarp.com. You'll also find Lost in the Warp on Facebook. And I'm going to be teaching at least one set of lessons this summer in Kingston. Nice. Aggie and Ben have been egging me on to do that. So I'm not going to be teaching at Gen Con this year, but I will be going to World Expo in Chicago next year. So we'll see what comes between here and there.
And I am looking forward to taking James's course because I want to take that one for sure.
We should all.
Do
we get Moose Machine discount?
If you guys haven't,
you ask Aggie.
If you haven't gone to James's blog, check it out right now. He did a full breakdown of his Boromir bust, which is
amazing.
Some amazing the cloak that you did on that Boromir bust, plus the lighting that you did on his face, are 2 of the finest things I've seen done with that style.
And if you want some Moose Machine bonus points, you can see how far back his blog goes and see if you can find a picture of my Signar on there somewhere.
Oh. All right,
chipped up Signar.
There are, of course, I want to thank my 2 guests, or my 2 co-hosts. With them. They're my guests. You guys are just my guests. I just bring you on.
The house guest.
This is his house, so we have to
get out of my basement.
No, I mean my 2 co-hosts. Thank them very much for once again putting up with me running this piece of crap.
Thanks for having us, Mev.
All right, there are several ways to get in touch with Moose Machine and to take part in all of this ridiculousness and make fun of me, mainly because I'm the one that is the target, because I sound like Kermit the Frog. You can find us on Facebook. Just look us up. Look up Moose Machine, because we're still working at getting the original title of our broadcast, which apparently had a swear word in it and nobody liked it, changed. So just look for Moose Machine on Facebook. Mm-hmm. You can find our Twitch channel at PG_semi-automagic. You can find us on YouTube at George Schweitzer right now. We're hoping to get that changed over to Moose Machine in the next week, but just look up Moose Machine on that too. You can find us on SoundCloud if you look up Moose Machine. And last but not least, you can always find us on the Muse on Minis network. That is the best way to get a hold of all of our stuff. Muse on Minis is one of the best things that's ever happened to us.
Yeah. It's
one of the best things that can happen to you. Spend some time on their page. They are fantastic, and they do actually Muse on Minis. They're at like friggin' broadcast 253 or something.
So really what you're saying is if you can't find us, you should probably turn off your computer and go to bed.
Yeah, or take out the tape that somebody gave you from 1963. Because apparently that's...
I'm going to be a jerk and jump in with one last plug before I forget. There's 2 really amazing miniature painting competitions in Canada this year. One's the Northern Defender Painting Competition, which is run by Mathieu Fontaine. It's in Quebec. It's coming up, and it's going to be insane. It'll be so good. And in the fall in Toronto is going to be the 2nd annual Sword and Brush figure painting competition. The first one, the level of stuff that was there was incredible. It was just spectacular show, and I can't recommend that one enough. And that one's hosted by the guys from the Bent Bristle, which is an online model painting site. And amazing guys, great event. I can't wait for that.
Thank you very much. That's perfect because that leads right into what other events do we have? Because we have so many events coming up in the local area. Let's keep it down to the top 3.
The next month or 2.
Top 3. I would say the top 3 upcoming events. Soon enough, we will be seeing our first of our competitive tournaments, the Alpha Series. is coming up pretty quick in March. For the Company of Iron Leagues, our first one is starting up pretty quick. And on the Omega track, I want to throw out the Battle Box tournament we're going to run soon. That's really great if you're just getting into War Machine. You just bring a Battle Box, and we basically supply everything else, and you get to take it all home with you.
And we got King Con coming up, which is coming up
Yep.
right around the corner. Can't wait! Can't wait for that. Hopefully, I get to go. I think I might be out of the country as per usual. And of course, we will be at SOO, the entire Moose Machine.
Which is getting
gang.
closer.
It's getting closer and closer every day. Got to keep plugging that. And there is a painting competition at SOO.
Yes, there is.
And I want to see more than 10 people. I want to see everybody kick my ass this year at SOO because I do not deserve to win.
Let's
Yeah,
just
you won
flood
last
the
year,
painting
so-
competition
Well,
this year.
We know what the level is like.
Yeah, we know what the level's like. If I can win it, you can win it. Just put your damn miniature in. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that we have literally gone. We've only gone 10 minutes over the death.
Oh,
clock
well,
tonight.
we're down from the 30
We're
minutes
down
last
from
time.
the 30 minutes from last time. So that's it, everybody.
Well, let's just keep going.
Dice down. Dice down. Moose Machine and This Death Clock Has 60 Minutes is a proud part of the Muse on Minis network. Podcasts go online every Thursday morning. You can watch the show live every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on Twitch and keep in touch with us on our Facebook page. Just Google Moose Machine. If you can't find us, you're doing the internet wrong.